Hello chaps, and welcome to the longest script for a video I have ever written, because damn, the First League is a long story. Thank you for all the likes on the latest video and all of the shares we've been getting, it's absolutely great. Anyway, it's time to begin. The First League event chain is going to be a sad story about an attempt of galactic unity that, as you can probably guess, went downhill very quickly. The First League are a group of multiple species, all from different backgrounds, that use their combined power to control vast portions of the galaxy around 200 million years ago. 2 million years ago. How it collapsed we do not yet know, however I am sure it will be spectacular. Anyway, onwards to our first major discovery. A League naval base can be found around the orbit of a planet. The base talks of a vast fleet. The fleet was called the Grand Navy by the League. Its aim was to combat piracy and safeguard the member nations of the League from external aggressors. However, this particular naval base was only used to provide a home for the 28th Outer Rim Patrol Fleet. This was a mid-sized task force of ships who were ordered to defend the many trade routes of the League heading in and out of its member states on the Outer Rim. In a few systems over, the front half of a cruiser can be discovered orbiting an insignificant planet. There is hardly anything left of the ship apart from the bow section, which is full of holes. The only information we can salvage from the dead ship is the crew manifest sheet. It turns out that the League called upon all its member worlds to join the magnificent Grand Navy Starfleet. The manifest showed that this particular cruiser had members from 12 different species. I'm impressed if they can get 12 species to work together efficiently, without any problems at all. Well, actually, this could explain why the ship is full of holes. Perhaps they were not able to work together. Our next stop is the Khamdai homeworld. The Khamdai were a species of insectoid warriors who were one of the founding members of the First League. They built vast hive-like cities all over their planet, apart from in one area that was dedicated to remaining a reserve for their species. The Khamdai were incredibly warlike, and after achieving faster than light travel, they began warring against many of the other founders of the First League. However, after they were defeated in a war, they began to enthusiastically support the formation of the First League. After its founding, the Khamdai found themselves as warriors for the League, and put to use in the shock troop divisions against their many enemies. Our science ships then discover another homeworld, the Chassago Homeworld to be more precise. The Chassago were a race of subterranean reptilian people whose cities tunneled underneath their planet 2 million years ago. Of course, since then most of the tunnels have collapsed, so it will be a pain for our scientists to discover more. However, after an extensive investigation, we learned that they were actually gigantic legless serpents, similar to that of a 20-meter long snake. Now that's pretty scary. The Chassago were also founding members of the League and had lots to bring to the table, similar to the Khamdai. The Chassago were excellent traders who were often the first people to contact if you wanted to make deals with the League. It is likely that these guys made up the backbone of the League's economy. Guess what, chaps? It's another homeworld for a founding member of the First League. This is the homeworld of the Yan. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but you guys should know how difficult it is for a British person to say anything that sounds vaguely foreign. Anyway, this race, whose names I will never say again, lived in massive arcologies that were clustered in small groups on the surface of their planet. Now, an arcology, for those who don't know, is a massive structure similar to a megablock from Judge Dredd, however more modern and eco-friendly. Each of these buildings could support several hundred million individuals. This species used vast skywalks to move around between the arcologies. The planet is home to many fossilized remains that paint the picture of what the species was like. They were a small herbivore rodent species no larger than 1.6 meters in height. Each family usually consisted of thousands of individuals that used their social skills to work their way to the top. As a result, they played a crucial role in the diplomatic corps of the League and were also the main driving force behind the League's creation. The final founder homeworld is for a species called the Vropak. This species were a race of flightless birds with long spindly legs. They were roughly 4 meters tall, making them one of the largest species of the League. The Vropak lived in artificially constructed hollowed out mesas. They were an important part of the League, and in its prime the Vropak were regarded as the greatest scientists in the galaxy, whose discoveries drove the League's initial expansion phases. This is evidence to suggest that several races joined the League simply to have access to the Vropak's master technology. However, none of this technology has survived the test of time. Whilst on the topic of technologies, a nearby League science station can be discovered on the surface of a small planet. The majority of the station has been destroyed by what appears to be a massive explosion. However, some of the outer lying buildings have survived. After our scientists returned with a report, we discovered that this research was likely looking into dangerous technologies, as it was so isolated from the rest of the League. It is possible that they were looking into extra-dimensional travel or advanced bioweapons. A few data disks were discovered, hinting that these disks might be used for communications across the League. Probably one of the best explanations we have for the League's downfall comes from the discovery of the joint League colony. The colony was just a social experiment, and not a shitty YouTube one. This colony actually meant something. The colony was founded in the League's declining years. The initial population of the colony was an equal amount of all of the League's member species. When the colony was founded, the League was on the verge of collapse from internal pressures. The colony was meant to serve as propaganda, showing a model world where all could work together. However, it completely backfired, as there was a vast sway of evidence of significant infighting and cultural tensions. The colony was abandoned less than 50 years after its founding, after a large massacre occurred. The colony was a massive cost for the League, as members blamed each other for its failures. On the surface of a large planet is evidence of a massive trade hub that was once an integral part of the League. The planet was home to at least 12 major spaceports that were connected to giant trading cities. However, the planet was gradually abandoned over several centuries during the decline of the League. The decline could be caused by shifting trade routes elsewhere or the collapse of the First League itself. There is no evidence of who colonized the planets first, as equal amounts of all League members, and including around 6 races that were not members of the League but had special trading privileges with the League, were found here. A great space battle has occurred in a system on the Outer Rim, and you can discover a vast pile of wreckage nearby. The battle occurred 2 million years ago between the mighty 2nd and 3rd Task Force of the Grand Fleet that were fighting to contain an incursion of a combined fleet of ships from a species called the Rakim. They were a nomadic warrior species from the Outer Rim that was simply trying to pass through. It started as a small skirmish between both sides, but soon escalated into a fight involving hundreds of ships on both sides. However, it is impossible to tell who actually won this large battle. Worrying scenes can be discovered nearby at the ruins of a large prison complex. This world is hostile to almost all life and served as a maximum security penal colony. This particular place housed convicts from all over the League space. Most of the inmates were guilty of terrorism or piracy. It would appear that most of the prisoners died in their cells and were left behind when the League collapsed. Missions to the planet reveal that an escape attempt was made by several prisoners that managed to steal some pressure suits. Their bodies can be found huddled together several kilometers away from the prison. All of them died from asphyxiation. For whatever reason, the prison guards saw no reason to collect their bodies. I'm sure many of you have experience of dealing with primitive worlds, and you will probably do the same thing as me, invade and eat them. Wait, I'm the only one? Oh well. Anyway, there are at least 7 primitive worlds inside League space, and we can discover one that is currently in the Bronze Age. This planet was home to an unknown species, however there is evidence of a well-hidden observation post. The post explains that the League was monitoring the primitive species whilst making sure not to be noticed and accidentally influence their culture. This particular race of primitives were picked up by slavers when the first league collapsed, as this area was no longer protected. Around the orbit of a planet that is firmly in League space is the remains of a massive blockade that existed 2 million years ago. The blockade was part of the First League's Grand Fleet and was blockading this planet, which was likely the homeworld of a species name has long since been lost. The only data left on them exists in the databanks of a nearby League ship that describes the species as non-compliant. The blockade must have lasted a long while as the planet's residents began to get more and more desperate to escape, with their final attempt being the successful detonation of an antimatter bomb in the center of the fleet. This story in particular shows the League in a very negative light. This planet was evidently in League space, however the species living on it did not want to join the League, and so the League's response was to try and starve the planet into joining. This is a terrible strategy as it will only cause more unrest in the future. The final encounter before the League's central planet is a visit to the Smugglers HQ that is built inside an asteroid. The smugglers here ran a huge operation that was almost impossible to stop. When the League made movement between internal empires unregulated, the smugglers thrived by being able to move illegal cargo between the colonies. The smugglers are actually a demonstration of cooperation between the species. The asteroid was home to smugglers and pirates from all species in the Empire. They all socialized and worked together with no examples of internal conflicts. The smugglers were a real problem to the League as they had a combined armada that could even rival the Grand Fleet. Okay, so it's finally time to visit the League home system, and trust me, it's not going to be a pretty story. The home system housed the mighty League administrative planet that was an entire planet that was tasked with controlling the rest of the League. It housed the Great Senate that voted on the League's actions. The planet was densely populated, with almost the entire planet being one entire city. Of course, with a population this size, food had to be imported in from elsewhere in the League on a massive scale. The exact population is likely to be between 100 billion and 1 trillion. Of course, when the League suddenly broke up, the food shipment stopped immediately. Of course, those who could fled the planet, however, the majority of the population was left stranded, with even their own species empires making no attempts at a rescue operation. Mass starvation occurred, the warriors of the Khamdai set up massive gangs, the diplomatic BUY set up criminal organizations that slowly fizzled out. The intelligent Vropak had mostly left in the first wave alongside the traders and merchants of the Chassago. For following centuries, the planet would prevail as a lawless mess piled high with dead bodies. Eventually, it was reduced to a ghost world metropolis. The final flame of the League is now well and truly blown out. The story of the First League is the longest precursor event chain in Stellaris. In fact, I think it might be the longest one in the entire game at the moment. It shows the successful creation of a group that brought economic prosperity to each other by playing into each other's strengths. They could have a mighty army, strong diplomatic groups, wealthy merchants, the strongest science teams in the galaxy. So where did it go downhill? There is evidence of forceful cooperation in the League, the example being the colony. In that situation, the species could not get along. However, the smuggling groups managed to all work together fine. The downfall for the League was its rapid and often forceful expansion. Members were forced into the League by economic pressure. Some joined only for military protection, others joined to exploit and use the existing science available. Either way, the founding members were used by others, and so divides were made between species, as some were seen to be pulling their weight more than others. The League was a mighty possibility, however the Senate's desire for an ever-expanding League resulted in its collapse and the death of billions. Well, that ends today's story. I hope you have enjoyed it. This one took me almost 2 days to piece together, so a like and some support in the comments would be greatly appreciated. If you have not already, make sure to check out the playlist that I created so that you can follow all of my Stellaris lore stories. I noticed in the comments on the last video someone made a request for me to cover the Stellaris ebook. And well, I'm not quite sure what you mean. Would you like a short summary of the story, or are you looking for an actual audiobook cover of it? Because I'm pretty sure the latter is against copyright laws. Anyway, thanks for all the great support. I am having an absolute blast writing these scripts. It is always surprising to see just how many likes we get on these videos. If you want to share this story with your Stellaris friends, then you get a gold star from me. Anyway, I shall see you all in the next one.